Hi, this is Trey Pastor. I'm going to do a review of the Superman movie with spoilers in this review, but I decided to do it a different way. I went down and went, because I've seen the movie twice, and I went and I kind of wrote down ahead of time things that I really liked about the movie and things I had issues with in the movies. I think that would be better than just basically going over the plot, okay, which is basically Lex trying to destroy Superman. That's basically what the plot is of this movie. So I decided to make those two lists, and I'm going to talk about the things I liked first. And again, like I said, this is going to have spoilers in it. So I thought that would be a better way than just doing a review with spoilers. I'll tell you about the things I liked, and and I'll give you a description of why I liked them and tell you why I liked them. And I think that'd be better than tell you the issues I had with the movie and why. So I think that would be better. So first of all, I'm going to go with the thing. I have, I think, about 10 things here that I liked about the movie. And I have about 4 things that I didn't like about the movie. So I still give it 3.5 stars. I did enjoy the movie a lot. And I think James Gunn set a nice tone for this DC universe going forward. And I can't wait to see what he does next. And I'm hoping that he does a World's Finest movie. Okay, because I would love to see James Gunn get his hand on Batman, on the character of Batman. And we know he did a secret project. He said he was in a writing stage of doing a secret project. I'm hoping that's a World's Finest movie. So I'm hoping that we get that. So that way we get David Cornsweet as Superman. We get to see him that again, and also get the excuse me, the Batman before we get the Batman Brave and the Bold movie. So we get introduced to to the Batman, and to see them together would be great. But anyway, the things I like. Okay, let's go. Okay, the way he flew. Like, I'm a big Man of Steel fan, and I love the way the first flight and all that stuff, him taking off and flying. But I also love the way he flew in this movie, especially if you see the beginning part of the movie after he gets he gets wrecked and he gets taken to the fortress and he gets basically gets sunned on by the robots, and then he has to go back out again to come back to fight that robot. What do you call that thing? A Baravia, the robot of Baravia, which we know was actually the Ultraman in that suit. But anyway, I love the way he flew, and that I just the way he was flying, and his hair. You see his hair flying, and him flying up, and his cape flapping. I love the way he flew in this movie. Again, that first, you see him first flying when he leaves the fortress, and he's zooming and stuff, and then he's avoiding the big the kaiju later. I love the way he flew in this movie, and again, I love the aerial fight scenes. I guess I would say that I like the way they did that, and also I love the Crypto too. The way Crypto flew as well in this movie. So those are the things I really liked about the flight, because that's one of the things I was worried about, just to seeing if how he would have Superman fly and stuff in this movie, and I have no problem with him with flying, and I like because it looks like literally like he's flying. You see his hair flapping in the breeze and stuff, so it actually looks like he's flying, physically flying places and stuff, and I really like that. Now, the second thing, Crypto himself. When I first found out that Crypto was going to do this movie, I was kind of like, what? Why would you put Crypto in a Superman movie? Okay, I was kind of hesitant about it, but when I started seeing the trailers, then I really enjoyed it. And then James Gunn explained about how he rescued the dog and all that stuff. But I really enjoyed Crypto in this movie. I thought he was absolutely great in this movie. Again, he was a dog that obviously that Superman was minding for his cousin Kara. That was her dog, but he was basically house sitting the dog. I guess while Kara was off getting drunk on a red sun, a planet that didn't have a red sun. That planet that had a red sun, I guess, so she could actually get drunk. But Crypto was great in this movie. But I still think they cut out some scenes, because I remember the behind the scenes things. You saw Mr. Terrific like holding like a milk bones. He was like trying to lead Crypto away. I think they cut that part out of the movie. So again, that's why I guess I want to see a director's cut of this movie, because I know there's scenes that James Gunn had to probably cut this movie down a lot to get it to be under 2 hours. Okay, so I think there might be a whole nother hour of this movie that we didn't get to see, because he had to pare it down. So but Crypto was great in this movie. And one of the great scenes I liked is when Superman was in, they towards the end of the movie, the final act when he was in, when him and Mr. Terrific and Krypto flew into Lex's little mini fortress that that he detached from the Lex Tower, and he was in there, and he was just, and Lex was, I think, going on a rant about to Superman, and then also Krypto just basically grabbed his arm and just basically shook him, and slammed him left and right. I don't know, that made me laugh because it reminded me of when the Hulk grabbed Loki and just was slamming him like that way. I don't know, it cracked me up that Krypto grabbed him and just basically was using him like a chew toy and basically tossing him around left and right until Superman told him, let him go, let him go. I thought that was hilarious. Okay, I know that was, some people think, because Lex is human, but Lex deserved it, because Lex was a complete dick in this movie. Okay, so anyway, so I love Krypto, and again, I love towards the end of the movie when Supergirl, and I'll talk about Supergirl when I get to it, and her scenes with Krypto too. Love that. Okay, so anyway, and the main thing, David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan. First of all, I thought they had great chemistry together. That was just, it's been apparent from the first trailers and stuff. They had great chemistry together, and I loved what they, them together. And that scene, that I think it's about, is it 10 minutes or so? That scene with Nina Park when Lois comes home from the Daily Planet, and Clark is already there cooking for her. It's a 3-month anniversary, and he's cooking for her. And they have that long, that the scene you see in the trailer, except obviously extended. And they're talking to each other, and they're going back and forth, and they're going back and forth, and Lois is really hitting him with some hard-hitting questions and stuff, and she's not taking it easy on him at all. And Clark is getting frustrated because he's wanting to do. He's saying, "I'm trying to do the right thing, trying to do good, because people are gonna die." He's really passionate about being Superman and what his goal is. And he even tells you, because you see in the beginning of the movie when you get that little bit of when the robots tell him that we're playing a little tape of his parents talking to him, and he said it really soothes him. It really gives him comfort. And even Clark says, he said, "Listen, that's my parents sent me here to do good, and that message gives me comfort. That I'm here, doing fulfilling my parents' mission." And okay, so that conversation is really intense, and it ultimately ends with Clark leaving, and Lois even says, "Listen, I told you I don't do relationships." And it's a powerful emotional scene. That scene, it's really one of the stronger scenes in the movie. Okay, with them Clark, and because I know there's not that much Clark in the movie as people would like, I guess, but I still think even when he's Superman, he's still Clark. Okay, so that part didn't bother me enough. And that scene right there, you get a lot of Clark in that scene, because that's him. He's doing the Superman thing in the interview and stuff, but he's really giving you his emotions as Clark about what he feels and stuff, and that he was meant to, what he was doing. And Lois is giving it right back to him and telling him, and it's an intense scene, and it just shows you they're great at it. The way they bounce off each other, it's really intense, and shows you that pairing is great, and that James Gunn made a great decision in hiring those two actors for these two important roles. And I love the part too when Clark, or Superman, if you will, tells Lois when he's doubting himself, and he tells Lois before he leaves that he's going to turn himself in, and he tells Lois that he loves her, and he leaves, and then later you get that call back towards the end of the movie when everything is over, and Lois and Superman are facing each other, and they said, "Let's go over here for this. I'm going to give you an exclusive interview." And then as soon as they get out of the public view, they start kissing madly and stuff, and that's when she tells him that she loves him. And I love that scene because it just calls back and it shows you the kind of evolution of their relationship. Even in this 2-hour movie, it shows you that basically, even though we come in the middle of their relationship, it shows you how their relationship actually grew. And it grew to the point where Lois, even though she was doubting some of the things Superman was doing, she ultimately, she has his back. And the fact and I think he even says it, that you came for me. And she said, of course. And that right there shows you, that showed him, Clark, that Lois did love him when they get out of that, that Mr. Terrific and her go to rescue Clark, and he says, listen, you came for me. And that's one of those sweet moments that just shows you that the dynamic between those two characters. And I can't wait to see them in more Superman movies and stuff together, because they have great chemistry, and it was just showed throughout. And again, great casting by James Gunn and great performances by David and Rachel. Chef's kiss on that. And also Mr. Terrific. Okay. I heard before the movie came out, because I think they released one of the scenes that came out before. And somebody, I think Amazing Lucas is the YouTuber who said that he thought that looked like Mr. Terrific was playing like a stereotypical character, which I totally didn't. After watching this movie, that's totally he got that totally wrong, and I don't know why he said that. Just because they released a scene. To me, Eddie Gathegi was great as Mr. Terrific. He was the chef's kiss as Mr. Terrific. Okay, because he's had all the Justice Gang people. He had the most scenes, I guess, in the movie out of all of them. And him and Lois together went to go rescue Superman, and he even teamed up with Superman and stuff. And I loved Eddie Gathegi because he was smart, and he shows you, how smart he was, and he had this some great funny moments and stuff. And I loved him in this movie, and I can't wait. And I hope they do a Terrifics movie or a Terrifics TV show. I would love to see that, because I know in the Terrifics, I think it's Plastic Man, Mr. Terrific, I think Metamorpho, and I think a girl. Okay, I forgot what the character's name is. So, but I would love to see them in a TV show or even a limited series, called Terrifics, because again, and I love this ship, and I love his T-Spears. And I love Eddie Gathegi because he had attitude. He did have attitude, okay? But he was a great part. He played a great part, and he killed it as Mr. Terrific. And I cannot wait. And I love this suit, and I can't wait to see him again in more movies and stuff. So, chef's kiss again to Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific. He was great. And Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner. He was obnoxious as he was supposed to be and stuff, and I really enjoyed it throughout. Again, I'm a big Nathan Fillion fan anyway, and I think he was good in the limited time he had on screen, and I think he was fantastic. Again, the only person, again, like I said, Hawkgirl, she didn't get that much to do in this movie, okay, Isabel Marshall, which is a shame. She didn't have that much to do in it, although she did have a great moment where when she attacked the president and from that foreign country, and he basically said, "You're a hero. You won't kill me." And she said, "I'm not Superman." She dropped him. I love that. That part had me cracking up. Oh God! But again, the Justice Gang was really good in this movie. And I did like also the part where they were fighting the big monster, and Superman was trying to find a peaceful way to stop the big monster without killing him, but they didn't care. Justice Gang said, "No, we're going to stop this guy." And I think Mr. Terrific shoots those T-Spears inside of him, and he basically exploded his heart and basically killed him in front of everybody. And another scene that you see, it's real quick. After they kill the monster, and Superman lays him down, and then you see the people are clapping and all that stuff, and then you see all the little kids run up to Superman, and everybody else is just. I thought that was really telling that, of course, that the kids love Superman, and so I think that was really sweet. Now, also, Lex Luthor, Nicholas Hoult, I absolutely loved him. He was a great villain. Okay, he had a plan, and he had counter plans, and he had a goal. Okay, which is just destroy Superman, and he did everything he could to get that mission done. He was fantastic in this movie, Nicholas Hoult, especially in the third act. He was just, again, and the guy that played Otis I thought was good too, who was not, Ned Beatty played the bungling Otis and all that stuff. But this Otis he wasn't silly or dumb. He did everything Lex wanted him to do and more. And also the people that worked for Lex, they were really good. They were they were in on this mission too. He had his whole team, and Lex had all these move sets. So when that he was directing the Ultraman to fight, when he was fighting Superman, he would say A1, B2, C5. That part was great. I said, oh my God, he had a plan. Okay, him and it was great to see Lex again. He was, he had that pocket dimension that he kept all those people down there. He kept Metamorpho down there, and when he killed that vendor that you see in the trailer that comes to Superman to help him up after Superman, gets basically thrown down by the hammer of Baravia, aka Ultraman, and they actually, they scan the guy's faces. They're looking because Lex is always filming everything, and Lex actually brings after he captures after Superman turns himself in, and they have him in the cell, and Metamorpho was basically transforming his hand into some kryptonite, and they have this guy here, and and Lex is basically playing Russian roulette with the gun, and he kills the guy on the second attempt when he's trying to ask Superman questions. I said, oh my God, that shocked me that he killed him so fast, and then you just saw Superman yelled. I said, oh my God. This Lex is a son of a bitch. He don't care. Okay. He has a goal. He can't stand Superman. He considers Superman to be an it. Okay, and even the reveal of when he reveals about Ultraman to Superman, he tells him that it was easy to get DNA from your fights and stuff, and this guy's even stupider than you, which I thought was really insulting. He's basically telling Ultraman, right in front of Ultraman, he said, he tells Superman, this guy's even dumber than you. so it was easy to clone you, and then for a minute when they did that reveal of Ultraman, when they because there's a great the great scene when Superman comes back to town and he's fighting Ultraman and the engineer in the stadium, and the engineer is trying to overwhelm him with her nanites and stuff, and Superman just basically flies up, and they're hanging off of him, and he flies up into the sky, and they're trying to cover him, his body. They basically cover his whole body in those nanites. So Superman just comes back and he speeds down, and then they realize, Lex and them realize, because he's heading all the way down, that he's the only one that's protected. And so the engineer gets knocked out, and Ultraman gets ripped to the side, and that's when you see the reveal of that Ultraman is really the clone of Superman, and he looks for a minute, just for a minute, like Henry Cavill. And I know people are gonna say that's ridiculous. But for a minute, he really does, and David does look like Henry Cavill, like a younger brother for something. And he really looked with the long hair and stuff. He really looked like Henry Cavill for a minute. And they had some intense fights. Those fights that he had when he was blasting Superman with his laser vision, with his heat vision. That was just nasty and just, oh my God. And I thought Superman was taking some beatings, but I like that he when it looked like he was let's call it was the engineer, not the Ultraman was gonna knock him out, kill him, and he whistled and Krypto came and just knocked him out, and then there was some intense fights, and I really enjoyed it. But Nicholas Hoult, he was just ruthless in this movie, and at the end of the movie, of course, they said, let's get his ball headed behind to Belle Rade, which is where Amanda Waller obviously she's in control. So definitely, they say you might see Lex and and Peacemaker season 2. Lex might be, you probably might see him in a cell somewhere when Peacemaker walks by or something. You might see him in a cell somewhere, and I got a feeling you're gonna see that, okay? Because Lex did get captured at the end and taken off to Belle Reve. Okay. And I also like that they did jump right into the action. They just, they really, basically, they gave you a little prologue about metahumans and Superman when he came, 3 years ago and all this stuff, and Superman lost the fight and all this stuff. And then they just jump you right into the action. And Superman is fighting the hammer of Baravia and stuff, and Lex is, guiding everything, and you see everything, everything. They basically jump you right in the middle of the action, and you just start going from there. I really did like that part of the movie as well. and also that it's bright and colorful. No dreary style. This movie was nice and bright and colorful. Okay, which I really enjoyed too, and I know it's going to look great on Blu-ray because it looked great in IMAX when I watched it. It looks absolutely beautiful and breathtaking. And also, like I said, that fight I already talked about that. The fight with Ultraman and Engineer, that was crazy. That was, again, like I said, that fight was intense and crazy. And also, I want to talk about Supergirl. Okay, she's not in the end credits. She's at almost towards the end, where you see the Superman goes back to the fortress after Lex is defeated, and you hear a big crash, and then you see Millie Alcott comes stumbling in as Supergirl, and you can tell that she's drunk, and she goes, "Hey, what happened to the door?" And then she goes, "Where's my dog?" And then you see Crypto, tackle her, and he's basically tossing her around like he did Superman before, and she's laughing her behind off and stuff. And I thought that was absolutely hilarious. A nice way to introduce her, excuse me, before you see her movie. And I thought, and of course, Superman and the robot are saying that that of course the dog has no training because of course the owner basically Supergirl lets the dog do whatever he wants. So I thought that was actually hilarious. And I know she said, "Thanks for guarding my dog, bitch," and then she takes off. And I guess we're gonna see Superman, I think, in Supergirl. I think even probably when she comes back. I think after her adventure, I think she'll come back to Earth, and and then you'll probably have her scene with her and David Cornsworth, a proper scene where they have actual back and forth, because I think I'm assuming that she's supposed to learn a lesson, okay, in the movie, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, or Supergirl, which they call it now. She's going to learn a lesson and stuff, and I think she'll come back a little bit more humble and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that movie, and I think I'm trying. What else? I think that's it for all the things that I liked about the movie. Okay, again. Let's talk about things I didn't like or things I wanted. Okay, and I guess this covers like two things. I wish the movie was longer. I really do. I know the movie's about 2 hours, about 1 hour and 58 minutes. I don't mind when superhero movies are like 2 hours and a half or even 3 hours. Okay, I have no problem with that. But I know sometimes movie companies want movies to be under 2 hours or a little bit over 2 hours, just so you can have repeat viewings and stuff. But I don't mind, and I think even though they had a lot of characters in this movie, and then James Gunn, I guess he handles lots of characters. Look at Peacemaker, not Peacemaker, the Suicide Squad movie, the what do you call it, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. James Gunn has no problem with dealing with multiple characters. But I do wish that we got more of the Engineer, okay, more of Rick Flag, more of Hawkgirl, more of the Daily Planet crew, and more of Metamorpho. I really wish that we got more of those characters, and I think if James Gunn releases a director's cut, we may get more of those characters. I think he had to cut the movie down a lot so to get it to fit the 2 hours. So that's why I think we didn't get as much as from certain characters as we could have gotten. And that's my only kind of. I really do wish it was longer. I wish the movie was like 2 hours and a half, just so we could have got more of the Engineer, more of Rick Flag, because I think he has maybe 2-3 major scenes. The Engineer, Rick Flag, more of Hawkgirl in this, more of the Daily Planet crew. I don't think we got nearly enough of them. We did. Jimmy Olsen had a good part, and I'm gonna get to that part because Jimmy Olsen is part of another thing I want to talk about. And Metamorpho, I wish we had got more scenes with him, like before even Superman got put into the cage, to that pocket universe with Metamorpho in that cage with the kryptonite. If we had seen Metamorpho before that, I think that would have been nice if you'd have saw maybe Lex, not torturing Metamorpho, but maybe even, threatening him, because basically that's what he was doing, threatening his kid to get Metamorpho to do what he wanted to, which is, make the kryptonite hand for Superman and stuff. But I wish we could have got more scenes of Metamorpho just to, get a proper introduction to him. And like I said, Hawkgirl, well, she didn't get as much as obviously as Mister Terrific and Guy Gardner, in there. Although she had that one great moment where she did drop the drop that president. I love that part where he said, "Oh, you won't drop me because you're a hero. You're like Superman." She said, "I'm not like Superman." She dropped his. I love that was great. Uh, so I did wish the movie was longer, just so we'd have got more of certain characters. I guess more action in the and also like as more as the Daily Planet thing, I guess would tie into more of Clark Kent. I guess because we didn't get that scenes of him as Clark Kent. Although, like I said, the scene with Lois is him being Clark Kent, being himself, really. Even though he's pretending, he's saying that he's Superman, but that's the real, that's Clark. So we did get him, but I do wish we had more of the Daily Planet and stuff around that. I wish we got more of that crew. We didn't get as much of them as possible. They do have a few scenes here and there, but not as maybe I wanted more of them, I guess. And the engineer, I wanted more of her because I thought her character was really interesting because her and Lex had a conversation where he says, but she says basically, I sacrificed my body, my humanity to help stop. So maybe you really got more of her motivation of why she decided to team up with Lex to stop Superman. More of that, I think that would have been good. The Ultraman, that's not necessary because basically he's basically just a stooge. Okay, that's all he is was basically a clone to do whatever Lex tell him to do. Okay, so that we got enough of Ultraman as much as we needed. Okay, so I didn't mind as much. So that was my only thing. I wish the movie was longer so we'd have got more of these characters, more scenes of these other characters that I feel that we didn't get enough of. Okay, so and also the second thing that I wanted to talk about was busting Lex depending on Jimmy's ex-girlfriend. Now, Miss Tachmacher, if I don't butcher her name, she was Lex's girlfriend. She's the girl you see in the trailer taking all the selfies and all that stuff. And it turns out she was apparently, an ex-girlfriend of Jimmy Olsen, okay, which we didn't know. And I think he didn't call her Hammer Toes. He called her something Toes and stuff. But basically, James Gunn played it for laughs. Basically, he had she was hung up on Jimmy Olsen. This girl was hung up. Although you do see, and I know Grace Randolph had a problem with Jimmy Olsen's character. She hated that he was basically using her, and which really happens in real life. Unfortunately, it does happen. People use other people. Unfortunately, they only use them for what they can, and it happens in real life. But she didn't like Jimmy Olsen being portrayed that way, or no, not she didn't like him portrayed. She didn't like him the way he treated Miss Tachmacher. And also, Bobo talks, and I agree with him on this point. He said, listen, busting Lex, basically it was depending on Lex's ex-girlfriend. Okay, that was basically one of the main plots. Now, Lois was proactive, okay, when Superman turned himself in, and Lois went after him. She said, I wanted to bust Lex and say that he's behind everything. So she was proactive to doing that. But also Jimmy was being proactive as well. And he had an end because he was the ex-boyfriend of Miss Tachmacher, who was actually Lex's girlfriend now. Okay, but it seemed like, she sent Jimmy Jimmy's basically trying to sweet talk her. They even met one time in a dark alley, and he basically was trying to sweet talk her, but you could tell he was trying to not, he's basically trying to, she was all in for him, but he was, he wasn't into her. She was into him. But he needed the information, so he basically was telling her what she wanted to hear. And basically she got the evidence when Lex basically I think Lex, didn't he shoot her in the butt or something? I think he threw something at her. That's when he got mad when Superman escaped. When he got rescued by Mr. Terrific. And Lex was so mad, and he was throwing things, and he threw something at Miss Tachmacher, and she got so mad. So she called Jimmy and said, "Listen, I'm going to give you the information about Lex and stuff." And she sent him the picture, and she actually got busted by Ultraman, but she sent the pictures to Jimmy, and all these pictures were a bunch of selfies, and he didn't think, he said, "Why did she send me all these selfies?" And Jimmy showed them to Lois, and Lois showed, and all the selfies she saw pictures of the maps and all that stuff, all the information that Lex was doing, contracts and everything else. So Lois got the information from Jimmy's ex-girlfriend. And like Bobo talks, you don't really want your movie, Lex being busted, depending on Lex's ex-girlfriend. The fact that she was hung up on Jimmy Olsen, that was kind of a weak plot point, that she was hung up on Jimmy Olsen, and he really didn't like her. He thought she was too clingy. She had horrible toes. Just really ridiculous. If you watch the movie, you go, that's really ridiculous. Okay, and you don't really want that plot point to be a major thing, that they was able to bust Lex Luthor from the help of Jimmy's ex-girlfriend. That was kind of a weak plot point. I think they could have done without that, and they could have done just because Lois was proactive in this movie. Like I said, she went to get the Justice Gang when Superman turned himself in, because she wanted to help him and help find Clark and bust Lex. So I think they could have had Lois do some more investigating and get the information to bust Lex. But I guess they maybe for convenience, and they wanted Jimmy Olsen to have something to do in this movie. So I guess that's why why James Gunn put that subplot in there of that girl, Miss Taskmaster, being Jimmy's ex-girlfriend, clingy ex-girlfriend. Okay, so but I think it was kind of a weak plot point. It was a weak plot point that busting Lex depended on Jimmy getting that information from Lex's girlfriend. Okay, and what if Lex didn't? What if Superman didn't escape? What if then what? She would have never sent him the information. Because there were moments in the movie where Jimmy, she wants to hang out with Jimmy, and Jimmy's kind of he's still being standoffish, which is really ridiculous. Because I'm sorry, the actress who's playing Miss Taskmaster is absolutely gorgeous, and there's no way in the world a guy like, no offense to the guy who plays Jimmy Olsen, but no way in the world. Although you do have guys that they do get tired of girls that are extra clingy sometimes. That does happen in real life, but I still think that was kind of a weak plot point, that them busting Lex depending on them getting that information from his ex-girlfriend. Because come on, that was really weak. They should have just had Lois again, and Lois was basically halfway there anyway, because she already didn't suspect Lex anyway. She always didn't trust Lex anyway, so she could have. I think they could have had Lois basically have an informant in something. Maybe have an informant in Lex's his little crew there that was so gung ho. Maybe Lois had a contact with one of them, and they had the information, and they fed it to her, and then that's the way they was able to bust Lex. See, that could have worked too. They could have did it that way instead of having. But I guess, like I said, they wanted Jimmy Olsen to have something to do in this movie and stuff. So, and it was for giggles and laughs. It was funny at that. But like I said, I know Grace Randolph. She hated that. You could tell from her review. If you watch her review, a spoiler review and a spoiler-free review, she hated. You could tell she hated that. She still thinks James Gunn doesn't write women well, which I think is just totally BS. Because Rachel Brosnahan, Lois Lane's character, is the best written person in this movie outside of David Cornsweet and Lex. So I think she's a little high-strung with that. And also, this is also one thing I wish there was more. Lex and Lois, I don't think they had any scenes together at all in this movie. I'm thinking back to the movie. Yeah, there was no scene between Lex and Lois. And I think the movie would have definitely been better with a scene between Rachel Brosnahan's Lois, confronting Lex or something. And maybe, like I said, maybe her going to confront him. And then maybe, Lex is, giving her the brush off and stuff. And then maybe Lois has a secret contact. And maybe that's how she gets the information to bust Lex. I think, but there's no scene. Which I kind of was hoping that there would be a scene between them, but there's no scene between Lex Luthor and Lois Lane, which I thought was kind of BS. That there was no scene between them at all in this movie. That's why I want a director's cut of this movie, because maybe James Gunn did write a scene, and again, but maybe they cut it out. But there's no scene between Lex Luthor and Lois Lane, and that's again one of the great rivalries in comics and stuff. Okay, so I think that's my issues with the movie. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. Again, like I said, Said I've seen it twice. Definitely gonna buy it. Excuse me, buy the Blu-ray, and I hope there's a director's cut of this movie. Because again, I really enjoy this, and I really hope James Gunn is writing a world's finest movie. I hope that is going to be the next time we see David Cornsweet as Superman, and I know we're going to see him also in the Supergirl movie as well. But I definitely want to see a world's finest movie, and we get introduced to DC Studios' version of Batman. Okay, but I definitely want to see this, and I really enjoyed this movie again. And so, feel free to let me know what you think of this movie. And I apologize for my voice again. I'm talking a lot again, and I guess it happens when I'm talking a lot and I don't have water and stuff, so my throat's getting extra dry, so I apologize for that going forward. But I really enjoyed this movie, and again, I think this is a nice first step with James Gunn's DC Studios universe, and I can't wait to see how much movie this. Again, I predict this movie is going to make at least $125 million, I think, this weekend. I think we'll find out tomorrow. But I think this movie is going to make $125 million. I think it is going to do, well, I think Grace Randolph thought that it's going to do as much as the Batman did. That movie, I think it's going to do, because I think that movie did in the $700 range, $700 million worldwide range, and I think this movie is going to do that. I definitely think it is, which I think is enough to go forward with these movies and stuff. And I can't wait to see what else, again, James Gunn does. And again, David Cornsweet, Rachel Brosnahan, I want to see these characters again in another movie. That's why I pray that the next movie he's writing is a world's finest movie, and we get DC Batman and David Cornsweet Superman. Okay, anyway, let me know what you think of the movie. What are your favorite parts in it? What didn't you like in the movie? Feel free to leave those comments down below. In the description box, I have links to my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram. Also, have a link to my other channel for all the views and opinions. So you check that out as well. Also, have a link down below to my Patreon. My Patreon is only $5 a month. Over 200 videos on there, 5 different categories. You get 5-minute preview clips of all the content that I have. Follow the link. It'll take you to my Patreon page. Also, have a link down below to my merchandise store, where I sell hats, t-shirts, mugs, sweatshirts, hoodies, water bottles, teddy bears for men, women, unisex. Follow the link. It'll take you to the store. Also, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps the channel, and I truly appreciate it. Also, hit the subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload new content to this channel. And this is Trey Pastor saying so long, and take care. Hi, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about in my Superman review with spoilers. The big twist, I guess, the big twist that James Gunn introduced in this movie with Jor-El and, I guess, Lara, right? I guess that's Superman's mom, right? Them actually wanting Superman to rule the Earth. Because in the movie, Superman, even in the beginning of the movie, you see Superman when he's wrecked in the fort and the robots are carrying him back. They're playing that, the message that they sent back, with Clark when he came to Earth. And he just heard the first part of it when they say they love him and they want him to do good and stuff, and they loved him and all this stuff. And that's what his mantra is. He even says it, I think, to Lois when she's interviewing him. He says, "My parents will sent me this plan to do good and do good." So, and that's the thing that he said. You see, that's sort of thing that keeps him going. His parents wanted him to do good. They sent him here to do good, and so that's what he holds that very special to him. It's very important to him to do that. But when Lex and the Engineer and the clone Superman, Ultraman, broke into the Fortress of Solitude, the message was actually the message got damaged supposedly on the way to Earth. So the Engineer was able to fix it, and that part of the message that you hear, the rest of it is that they basically want him to rule the Earth, and they want him to take as many wives as possible and stuff. And of course, Superman is devastated when he hears that. Okay, now, some people didn't like that twist because, in most iterations, Jor-El wants Clark to come to Earth, and, and better humanity and stuff. So, how I felt about that, I actually, I don't have a problem with it as much, especially if they're going to introduce Zod later, because then it would make sense if Zod is just basically like his parents. They feel that they're are an advanced race and they're superior, and the Earthlings are kind of primitive, and that they have a right to rule. Basically, his parents are telling him that he wants them to carry on their genes, basically, and propagate, and that he's going to be, he's going to be strong and stuff, and he wants them to rule over Earth. And so, okay, and at first, when I first saw the movie, I said, wait a minute, that's got to be Lexus fooling. But then when I saw it again, when Mr. Terrific tells him no, he said all these computer experts looked at it and they said that's the message. Okay, that's the message, and that just completely bummed Clark out. And again, for me, I don't mind that change as much because it's going to make sense, especially when Zod comes. If Zod comes to Earth later, okay, Zod and maybe the other two Kryptonian sidekicks he always has with him, okay, then it would make sense that they go, we're supposed to rule over. This is an Earth is an inferior. They look at us as inferior beings, and to propagate, and they want to propagate the Kryptonian race since they're the Clark and Supergirl and them, they're the only Kryptonians left, so they want to rule, okay, and they want to populate the human race. They want to repopulate Krypton, okay, basically, because they have all these powers and stuff. So it kind of makes sense in a way, because when Zod comes, he'll have that same philosophy, okay, that they should be ruling over the Earthlings. So that change, it didn't bother me as much. At first, like I said, I thought maybe that was just BS that Lex came up with. But when Mr. Terrific, like I said, the second time I saw it, and Mr. Terrific says, yeah, all the experts looked at the footage, and yeah, that's actually what they meant. And Clark, of course, Clark is devastated by that, because his whole thing was, he tried to live by what he thought, what his parents really wanted for him was to come to Earth and benefit mankind and do good. And so it devastated him to find out that his parents wanted him to basically rule over Earthling, because he doesn't want to rule over, because he even tells Lois, I don't want to rule over anybody. And Lois said, of course, I know you didn't. You don't want to do that. She says, I know you're a good person, Clark, so I know you don't want to do that. And so I don't mind James Gunn doing that change. That didn't bother me as much, especially after the second viewing. That didn't bother me as much. And like I said, if they introduce Zod down the line, okay, it's going to make perfect sense that he's going to come. When Zod comes to Earth, he's going to say, yeah, Kryptonians, we should be ruling over everybody, okay? And just like your parents wanted, we should be ruling over these people, because we're superior. We're superior beings. We're coming from an advanced society, and we should be ruling over these weaker beings, okay? And it makes perfect sense in that way, okay? So it doesn't bother me that much. Like I said, they introduce Zod down the line, and he's going to have that same philosophy, okay? Okay, and it makes sense that way, that he'll have that same philosophy, that we should be ruling over the humans, okay? Okay, we're superior beings, and we should be ruling over them. Okay, so I wanted to get that in because I forgot when I was writing my list. I forgot that part, which is a very important part of the movie. So I just wanted to add that in there. So that's why you'll see this at the end of the video. So now to make this video about 43 minutes. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, that's it.